So next up on our agenda for today, we have Rod Borrie with us here, which is really fantastic. He has been doing a program with fibromyalgia patients in float tanks, and I'm trying to actually kind of spur some more research and get that kind of leg of things going again. And he's here to both present kind of the findings of the study that's gone into it so far. And in addition to that, kind of talk about the next step for it, and the next step for hopefully research in float tanks in general. Because as Peter said yesterday, like it is really important. And the more you do get the scientific community behind you, the more you are creating education, and the more you are creating education, as we said, the more that floating, I think, is really going to take off. So join me in welcoming Rod Borrie.
First of all, I'd like to start out by thanking Ashkan for bringing us all together here, and all the people that float on. But it's very exciting to be here and see, so many people interested in flotation again, and all this young energy. And it's also at the same time, I don't know whether I'm about to exit, and I'm having my life flash before me. Hi Peter and Glenn and Lee, all these people that I've known for 30 years. Suddenly they're here. Either that, or I'm having a flashback. But it's deja vu all over again, and it actually worries me a little bit because I've seen this before. And I've seen it go with all this enthusiasm and all this energy, and it goes down the toilet eventually. So the question is, are we at a tipping point, or is it just a passing wave? And we can make it different this time by doing it smart, by thinking about some of the things that Peter said yesterday, that don't overstate your case. When you're selling flotation, stick to what we really know it does. We know that it is great for de-stressing. We know it's great for pain management. We know it's great for creating a meditative state. All the other stuff, the individual experiences, that's good, but don't generalize it and say that everybody can do that. So it's important how we do it, and also with a project, can we get that up there? Yeah. With focus, we can make a difference, and that's what this project is about. It's about creating a focus. Now, in 2010, there was a flotation conference in London, and I went to that. I was invited to come by Mark Frickel, who put it together, and I looked at it as, okay, this is my swan song. And I'll just tell the story of my work, which was started with Peter Sutfeld. He was my mentor. And we were looking at therapeutic uses of rest. We up there yet? Are we ready to launch? No input is detected. So I presented my work, which has been, when I moved to New York from Vancouver, flotation was big. This is in the 80s, and was using flotation as part of therapeutic programs. And went on and had my own flotation center after a while, and did that. But that had all died out. But there was such enthusiasm at the small group with London that I proposed to them that we do a project together, that we do a voluntary project. It seemed to be that flotation was more popular in Europe 2 years ago than here. So I said, let's pick one population that we can target, and let's give them free floats in exchange for some data. So we have a slide problem, and I have a lot of slides.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry, technical difficulties. Okay, let me just turn this thing off. Oh my God, what are we gonna do, guys? This is okay. Sorry.
we can do it the old-fashioned way with no illustrations. So we got all this momentum for people volunteering, and we picked as a subject matter, as a population. I had at my facility on Long Island. It was a pain facility. It was a medical facility, and we treated people with chronic illness and pain from all variety of sources: injuries, cancer, illness, and I found that flotation is really powerful with temporary pain relief. Even cancer pain, it was effective, as long as the person didn't realize they still had it.
Double computer. Should we close this? Oh boy.
And one of the groups that I treated were people with fibromyalgia. And fibromyalgia is a strange syndrome. It's a pain syndrome, and it's characterized. What's that?
That's my presentation. Yeah.
Well, we just want to say it one more time, right?
Yeah, right. Okay, here we go.
And which frame do you want to go on?
That's good.
That's good.
So, how many people here were at the Sweden conference? Okay, you're allowed to leave for half an hour, because I'm going to repeat myself. This is the talk that I gave in Sweden, because after, and it was pretty short order, so we did this research project with no money, all volunteer, and we tried to make it as scientifically valid as possible. And the people involved with it were myself and Tamara Russell from King's College, and I recruited a statistician from Stony Brook University, who was a wizard. But here's fibromyalgia being a muscular pain problem, and it affects about 2% of the population, and women are 9 times more likely to have it than men. But the reason it was chosen for this topic was because the symptoms of fibromyalgia match the benefits of flotation. They're a perfect match. And also because at the moment, fibromyalgia is very poorly understood. Many doctors don't even believe it exists. And they treat the patients that way too, rolling their eyes. And so the only treatments that they have are pain meds. So, and the other is that I had seen fibromyalgia patients respond very well to this technique. Now here you see the benefits of flotation and the symptoms and characteristics of fibromyalgia. So both have, fibromyalgia has a strong link to stress, and some believe that it begins with some stressful or traumatic event. And stress triggers the pain episodes. It's muscle pain, and it's caused by, it's characterized by trigger points throughout the body, which are little muscle knots, very painful. It's linked, and this is why many doctors think that it's a psychosomatic. It's linked, one of the symptoms is depression and anxiety. So these aren't happy people. And one of the characteristics is that they cannot get restful sleep. Interesting thing is that they don't really sleep that much less, but it's not restful to them. And there's one study that I came across which said that people with fibromyalgia have a deficiency of magnesium. So these all correspond really nicely to what they can get out of flotation. So that's why we picked it. And we had people, this was the study. So we was in 5 different countries. In Germany, Netherlands, United Kingdom, and United States, there was 1 flotation center in each one. In Sweden, there were several. Unfortunately, because of the data collection, we don't know how many. But this is the data we got. It was all paper, pencil. The people were given, we translated the questionnaires, and they were given questionnaires before and after each, asking them about these particular symptoms: how much pain they had, how much they were bothered by pain, how the muscle tension, how the freedom of movement, how stressed they felt, how much energy they had, their level of sadness, their well-being, relaxation, and how much anxiousness they had. And these were each on a scale of 0 to 10. And they checked off how they felt before each session and how they felt after each session. So the research questions that we were asking were, was there an immediate effect of the intervention? Meaning, did these symptoms change when they floated for an hour? Were there any longer term, we floated each one 3 times, remember. So was there any longer term change? Did it change over time, or did it stay the same? And was there any interaction between them, meaning that over time, did they tend to have more effect, or did they have less effect as they went on? Now, the results were that without exception, the immediate interventions were highly significant. Now, significance is measured mostly by a statistical test, which gives you the probability that this is just by chance. And it's considered significant if it's the chance is less than 0.05, right? That's the level. It's preferable to have less than 0.01 as we go on. I'm telling this because we're going to show you how significant these things were. With a couple of exceptions, energy, well-being, and relaxation with exceptions, there were changes over time so that from session to session, their pre-scores got less each time, or they changed in the positive direction depending on which it was. If it was well-being, it increased. And the last one was the interaction. The magnitude of the change that occurred over time did not significantly change, except for a couple of the ones. Muscle tension, stress, and relaxation became less pronounced as time went on. So let's look at the data. Here's the pain. Now, the way it's set up here is that here's your pain estimate on the left-hand side, and then each float has a pre and a post. So 1 and 2 measurement times are ones before the float, ones after the float. So you can see it's nicely that there was an effect for each float. It had about the same amount. If we look down here, the pre to post change, that's for all 3 sessions, was less than 0.0001, which is pretty extraordinary. The other changes were a little less. There was no difference they were always getting the same amount of change as it went on. Bothered by pain is measured separately because people can report pain and it doesn't bother them. So these people, it's about the same. Pain bothers them. And the results are pretty much the same. Muscle tension. Here, it's pretty much the same, except for you have significance in the pre to post difference in the very bottom one. It's less than 0.05 anyway. But I think it's because we're bottoming out here. You know, we're getting to how free of tension can you get? We're getting down to the limit. Ease of movement, this is important for people with fibromyalgia because the pain restricts their movement, and sometimes it completely disables them. And so again, it's getting better with each one. Feeling stressed, again, we have, I think we may be reaching the limits because you have less effect as it goes on with each one, but it gets better each time. Here's one where you don't see a lot of change. There is change, and it is significant, but they're not getting a boost in their energy.
Is the time the same for all of them?
Yeah.
So how much time is that?
Between each one, they were floating once a week.
No, but the post-time span, how long is that after?
Right after they floated.
Right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so they would fill out the form before and right after they floated. Sadness, also very significant. So we're working on the depression part there. The opposite of that, well-being. We're getting a nice improvement. Interesting that we don't have them progressing up quite as much. It's not significant. From the pre-tests, from one pre-test to the next pre-test. They're getting more relaxed. This is actually supposed to go up to 10, so we're not really topping out on this one, but that's as relaxed as they're getting. The amount of anxiety also. Okay, so those are the main measures. We looked to see, one of the things that we had originally in designing the study, I had made up an audio program which was designed to be listened to while they floated with some pain reduction suggestions on it. And it was in English. We put it up so that the script and all the music that was in the background were available, but nobody translated it. I mean, remember, we were doing with 5 different countries. Only 2 of them speak English. So it wasn't used in the non-English speaking countries. So we wanted to know, was there any difference between countries, you know, in terms of, and while there was, there was some difference between countries, it was still all very significant in terms of having the effect for each flotation, for each float session. Now, we had 81 subjects in this who participated, but not all 81 stuck with it. We had some dropouts. 9 of them only did the first session. 7 did sessions 1 and 2, and 65 did all 3. So then the question was, okay, maybe the people who dropped out weren't getting anything out of it. So we looked at that. And the blue ones are the ones who only did it once. And you can see they had a significant effect from it. The yellow ones did it twice. And they also had a significant effect. But the interesting thing there is that the yellow ones didn't get the longer term reduction. They were getting a benefit from it, but they weren't getting a long-term benefit. So, but they still, there wasn't a difference. It wasn't because they weren't getting something out of it. They were getting something out of it. And another way to look at the data is more personal, to look at what people said. And just looking at some of the comments, because they were given a chance to make comments on how they felt afterwards, and this was recorded at the beginning of the next session so that they could say how things had gone afterwards. So the sleep was better able to relax, felt balanced. I'm not going to read them all because you can read them. Can you? Better concentration because I'm not bothered by pain anymore. Here's a second German participant. I just sampled a few of them. It's an interesting first comment, feeling so much of a burden to your family and then finally being able to go back and participating in the family after a float, after one float. And these were set up so that float 1, float 2, float 3, these are when they were taken. This person felt more tired afterwards, which is often the case. When relaxation can make you feel really tired. If you've been running on pure stress energy and just keeping yourself going, you relax, you're exhausted. Here we're into the Netherlands. And here at the bottom, if I am floating to cure long-term pain, I will have to float more than 3 times. And that is, I think, very true. So doesn't always make you feel better. Now, one of the things that we also measured was sleep. But we had some problems with sleep. Part of it was my fault in the wording of the questions. My statistician pointed out to me that I was not consistent in the wording of the question from the initial evaluation when everybody filled out a form at the beginning, and the later one. One was asking in general, how much do you sleep? And it doesn't compare to how much did you sleep last week or how many hours. So it's not quite as valid because we needed to rephrase the words. Here's the wording of the questions that differed. How many hours of sleep do you get on an average night versus how many hours did you sleep the night after the float? And he said that's not valid. You can't have, because when people respond to a question on average, they don't give you the same answer when it's specific about this particular instance. So he said you have to change that, and we've done that for the next stage. But anyway, the results still showed this is sleep duration, so that with the follow-ups, baseline how much they sleep, they were asleep, and you can see that they're sleeping a reasonable amount of time. This is hours, 6, almost 7 hours. There was this increase in how much they were sleeping, but we also measured the quality, and that also increased. But we can't say that with great confidence because of the way it was worded. But sleep, one of the symptoms, we had to wait to measure that afterwards. So this study shows some compelling evidence that flotation can produce significant temporary relief to symptoms of fibromyalgia. The findings were consistent, they're robust across all 10 of the variables. In addition, they experienced increase that the effects lasted over time. The carryover of the variables moved progressively in the direction of improvement. And the amount of improvement was the same for each flotation session. So naturally, this raises the question of, okay, what would happen if we went longer? Well, so looking back at fibromyalgia, the current thinking about fibromyalgia is that it's a central mechanism in the brain where there's a oversensitization to pain, that a trauma or some stressful event or an illness has made this person more susceptible to pain. Giving them a lower pain threshold. Now, in addition, another hypothesis comes out of the magnesium literature that a deficiency of magnesium changes the way your nerves respond, that the nerves they'll respond to less stimulation. They're more sensitive, they're hypersensitive. So you may have both going on. You may have a brain mechanism going on, and you may have a nerve problem going on. So the question is, would it be possible to reset this? You know, the thing with pain, you have a pain sensation. And what happens when you feel pain? Well, there's an increase in your arousal level. Things, you know, it's how they, I'll tell you a story. I used to work in prison, and I was teaching. And one of the things my students taught me was how do you overcome a lie detector test. You know, a lie detector test measures how aroused you feel at any particular time, the amount of stress you're under. And they said, all you have to do is create some pain for yourself when they ask you the questions that they know the answers to. They would either stick a needle under their thumbnail and then just touch it every time, or they would jab their heel of their shoe into their ankle to create pain, to when they ask them what's your name, you can tell them your name, and the machine's going wild like you're telling a lie. So when we feel pain, we have an increase in arousal. And that increase in arousal causes an increased perception of pain. With fibromyalgia, you have the pain, the stimulus of pain, an increase of arousal, which is probably more because they're oversensitized, and then an even vastly greater increase in the perception of pain. So if you can pair the pain experience with a decrease in arousal repeatedly, then hypothetically, we should be able to create a decreased perception of pain, and in this way, reset this sensitivity. Now, so I had just finished proposing this in Sweden when this woman got up after me. Mark Frickel had arranged for this woman to come from England and tell her story. Now, I'll read this one because it's pretty small. But this woman named Tina Graham got up, and she said I could use her name. And she gave her story, which was that she was chronically tired, bedridden much of the time, and suffered pain that felt like body-wide bruising. It hurt to have one touch her. She was depressed, anxious, unable to work, and continually stressed about providing for her two sons. The doctors of the National Health Service could not tell her what was wrong with her. Finally, she went to a rheumatologist outside of the system and was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. And it was linked to a car accident that she'd had in 1998. Fibromyalgia led to Tina losing her friends, her job, her ability to enjoy her life. She had to consider her physical condition at all times and try to adjust her life to it, always anticipating some new symptom, new pain, or flare-up of the familiar pains. She was taking a prescribed cocktail of diazepam, naproxen, ibuprofen, tramadol, and fentanyl patches. But even this was not able to control the searing pain that she had. After she nearly overdosed on fentanyl, she decided she would go visit some friends who lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and there was a flotation tank nearby, and she was studying for a doctorate in psychology, and she was interested in relaxation and states of healing. So she'd read about flotation, and she went. At 43 years old, she tried her first float and described it as being like stepping into a warmth that was hard to describe. I felt held, secure, safe, enveloped, and surrounded by this wonderful water that was so good to feel against my painful body. I had immediate relief and no breakthrough pain for 17 hours after my first float. After that, she tried to do it every 2 weeks, but sometimes that was hard because the nearest one was 55 miles away. After 7 floats, she estimated that her pain was reduced by about 90%. And if she were able to float more regularly, she thought she'd be down to nothing because the relief seemed to be cumulative. With each float, she experienced progressively deeper relaxation as well as longer lasting pain relief. And gradually, she was able to hang on to this relaxed feeling and return to her normal life. She finished working on finishing her PhD. I don't know if she's done that yet. And then Anu, is Anu here? After Tina, Anu, who runs a float center in Sweden, she said that one of her patients, Birgitta, had done the same thing, that she had gone through the 3 floats of the fibromyalgia project, and she liked it so much that she continued. Now, she was diagnosed with fibromyalgia at the age of 45 and had much pain for many years before that, before she was diagnosed. The pain was in her neck, shoulders, legs, and back, and she frequently suffered from dizziness and had very little energy. She tried all kinds of treatments. Some of the things that had helped her were physical therapy and warm baths and exercise. When she entered this study, she was 70. And she felt such an increase in pain relief and in mood relief that she felt better in her body and her soul. She says at age 72, she's floating once a month and will continue to do so as long as it keeps her feeling so good. It's not completely gone, but it's significantly less, as she's had many days without pain. So, a couple of examples of people who have been able to carry it on longer. So this was the impetus to say, okay, let's do it for longer. And let's do it in the same format because we still don't have any money to do it. So we've created we want to do larger numbers. We had 81, down to 65 who completed the whole study, which is pretty good for a flotation study. That's a lot. We want larger because this is not a controlled, randomized study, which is where you can really say that to get the scientific community and the medical community to perk up and say, oh, look at that. But if we could come up with a few hundred people from all over the world, and give them longer times of doing it. So we created this website, and this is thanks to Graham and Ian. The website is up and it's functioning. And so the whole research will be based on the web so that you at your center can participate in this. It's designed so that people, if a fibromyalgia sufferer comes across it and we want to get them the word of this, they can register. It'll help them find your center. You can register. You've got to meet certain criteria. And one of those criteria is we want them to float 10 times. And so we're asking you to give them the first 4 floats for free. After that, you can choose, but for the next 6, you can charge them 50% of what you usually charge. So we're asking something from everybody. This person is supposed to give their data, and the data will be collected on the website. After that, what you charge is, you can go back to your normal rates, but these people are likely to be long-term users of flotation because it keeps them functioning. And with this, so the way that it will work, people will sign up for it. There's a number of steps to go through. They have to get clearance from their doctor. So there's a form on the form that they have to get their doctor to sign off, which makes us know that this person does indeed have diagnosis of fibromyalgia. And it also informs the doctor about flotation, which is part of what we wanted to do. This is for PR in the medical community. We want the doctors to know about this. So that's part of the reason for signing off, but also because we want to know this person really has fibromyalgia. And then all the forms, we're trying to maintain privacy on this. So the person doesn't give their name in to the website, they get a code. They get a code number, and the flotation center gets a code number. And whenever they fill out their stuff before and after a float, both codes have to be present so that we know that this person actually had the float. You can't just fill it out from home, so that we know that. There are a few tweaks that we're going to have to do in this yet, but it is up and running. So we're looking for 10 treatments. The wait list control, this is still up in the air. We're thinking about, because it's going to take some time for people to get their doctors sign off on this, that we use each person as their own wait list, so that while they're waiting to start the flotation, that they fill out the symptom checklist before each week, so that we allow them to do that for 4 weeks in a row. They're their own controls. We're trying to make sure we have scientific validity on this thing, so as much as we can in this kind of clinical study. And then if at any time anybody drops out, and this is something that was missing from the last study, we don't know why they dropped out. We didn't have a questionnaire for termination. So this time we will, whether they go through the whole thing, we ask them questions, or whether they drop out sometime earlier. And that's something that we can ask them. They don't need both codes. They can do that from home. So things to talk about. The privacy, I think we got pretty well covered, but the scientific validity, someone mentioned from Manhattan. Sorry, are you here? Yeah. What's your first name again? Rob. Yeah, Rob mentioned utilizing a standardized activity function test, which I think is great for the initial, so that we've got using some standardized forms in addition to just these scales for symptoms that will help with the scientific validity. The other part with the controls, we can only go so far in how much we can ask people to do. But we're trying to get as much scientific validity as possible. Whether there's any other variables we should look at. Translations. Now we need to have this translation. You saw the map of Europe and how many flotation centers there are there. Well, we've got Anu and Benjamin here to help us get with the German and with the Swedish, but there's the Netherlands. So we're going to reach out to have the website translated into as many languages as possible, so that people can do it all over the world. So what we also need to discuss, and from you, is how to outreach this, how to reach out to fibromyalgia associations and let them know about it, perhaps even get them to link to this particular website, so that, and reaching out to your community to let people know that this is a possibility. So, and the analysis, I have to try to recruit my pal Stefan Schneider, because he's a wizard. But any questions? Yeah.
Are you intending to continue using that you had talked about verbal pain, having a recording in English of verbal pain relief instruction in the floating? Are you eliminating that from the study because that seems like a variable, or are you going to have?
I was going to eliminate it from the study because it didn't seem to make a difference in the ones who used it and ones who didn't. And it just makes it simpler.
How did you describe pain? I mean, like the scale, when it went up from 5 to 6 or 7, I mean, is that like from a splinter to childbirth? I mean, like
No, the scale says it was 0 was no pain at all, and 10 was the worst pain imaginable, and the rest of them didn't have any analogies or, right? So that's the way all the scales were, with the minimum and the maximum described. So it's a standard form for this sort of measurement, but it is very subjective. Any other questions? We have.
I think this project is absolutely amazing. Do you think that you would be interested in setting up models for other things other than fibromyalgia? Clinical research models that the flotation center could be involved in as well?
Yeah, I think it's possible, and one of the things that I mean, maybe a general one for collecting data on flotation. We had talked about that, I think, yesterday. But I think it's important that we really, at this point, you know, this is a big group, but we're from, you know, all over the place. And so to maintain a focus and get ourselves on the map, with the medical community, try to be able to get some PR about this, you know, get some articles about it, to get some buzz. That, you know, it's a very difficult population. I know that some of the tank people who ran the float centers said, these are really difficult people. They complain about everything. So, but you know, this also lends to the medical belief that it's a psychosomatic thing. But just before coming here, I had a conversation with a physician friend of mine, and we were talking about this study, and he doesn't believe. He says the Rheumatology Association has a guideline for the criteria for fibromyalgia, and about 2% of the people who are diagnosed with fibromyalgia fit those guidelines. But he says your study is beautiful because it doesn't matter. They all felt better. And so, you know, he thinks it's a placebo, but we know it's not a placebo. But we know that the effect that flotation can have in lowering the arousal level, in improving psychological state, this is a big part of it. So whether it's psychological or physical doesn't matter because we're treating both. Plus, there is I found one study, it's on the web by Waring, saying that, and he was looking at Epsom salt bath, 3% solution, right? Just like you'd have at home if you had a tired back. And he found significant increases in magnesium in the blood plasma and in urine. So, because it's excreted very quickly, there's a problem with magnesium. So in the amount of Epsom salts that people are floating in the tank, you're going to have some massive amounts of magnesium being absorbed. So then you're soothing the nerves, and also magnesium is involved when you've got all that spasticity, those little trigger points. Yeah.
Have you authenticated those measurements
The measurements for
increased magnesium post-float?
I haven't, no. No, it's a study from someone at the University of Birmingham in England.
I'm familiar with that study. It's not been published,
Right.
so it's somewhat questionable.
Well, it should be, if it's just blood plasma and urine, it should be easy to replicate. And it would be nice if someone could do it with a flotation tank.
The reason that I ask is we get a lot of people come in for back pain, and that seems to be an amazing technique for reducing back pain. And it seems like a much more widespread problem in our culture. And so for myself, as the operator of the flotation center, I know that is an area that I would like to participate in, just because I think that it would make it more available to more people. And I was curious if there was a way that, you know, my center could get involved in some research into that area, not knowing anything about, you know, the research process.
Well, I suggest starting with this project. The problem with back pain as a research, as a focus, is that there's so many different causes of the back pain and so many different back problems, and you have to it's not just one group, you know, so that you're dealing with a much more complex population. So this one, while being fairly complex, and it's a complex syndrome, you know, it's a good place to start. I think we'll get to that. You know, I would like to, because we all have limited resources. You know, everybody's got lives doing something else, including me. So it's hard to put all that stuff together. So we've got this happening, which is, I'm thrilled. You know, we've got this up and running. It's got some tweaking to do, but we can still use it right away.
One of the problems with magnesium measurement is serum levels are really useless to determine
Where?
It's in Medford, Oregon, so southern Oregon. They check for cells underneath the tongue. So they do sublingual swab evaluation through spectrophotometer, and they can measure them pretty precisely. And that's always been a big problem, is measuring magnesium.
Right.
It's 10 to 20 times more concentrated in your cells than in your serums.
Yeah, the magnesium question is a tricky one. Couldn't do that without some money.
It's not an expense. It's not a cheap test either.
Right.
The one they do in Medford.
Yeah, it's, even doing plasma and urine would take some money. But that's just in the theoretical part of it. You know, the data suggests that we have possibly the treatment for fibromyalgia. You know, doctors don't know what to do about it. So if they can say, why don't you try this flotation tank? You know, then we're in. You know, it's 2% of the population. Of course, it's good for back pain and other pains, you know, and we can look into that later, but let's get it on the map first, my suggestion. Sorry, I can't hear the whole question.
Is it for people who've never experienced floating before? Is it first-time floaters?
Ideally, yes, it should be. That's going to give us a much. It's going to be, if we get people who have been floating all along, it's not going to. It's going to dilute the data and make it not look as good. You know, so if you've got people with fibromyalgia who are already floating, really, it's probably not a good idea to have them to participate. Or if they took the 4 weeks out with the you know, and we got that, collected that data that they have floated before, we could include them. We can put them as a separate group and let them be, you know, do a 4-week wait list before they floated again. That might work. Just so we know that they're not novices. I think Graham is going to run you through the website.
All right, so
I have a question. Have you thought about introducing chronic pain counseling or meditation or something to go with it that might increase the effectiveness?
Oh yes, I think about that all the time. It's what I do, and but for the purposes of the study, I decided to take it out because I had originally put it in, and it just became a little difficult. I mean, we could do it at some point, redo it and ship out the audio program that I created for it to anybody who wanted it, to plug it in, and we add it as, if we get enough subjects, we can then look at that.
and really quick question for you. Are you going to come back and present more of this after I finish, or are we done after I do? Do you want to do closing comments?
Well, if they have questions, I guess.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, my throat's been like really clogged today. All right, hey again, guys. So yeah. Okay, so I'm here to present another piece of software to you guys. And this is what the site looks like. Fibromyalgia Flotation, note it's flotation with an O and no A in there, .com. And let's see if this is actually up and running really quick, if that directs over there. Yeah, I also linked a kind of easier domain. Fibromyalgiaflotationproject.com is the main one. You should definitely link over to that with anything you do. But if you just want to look at it right now, we linked over floatresearch.com. It's kind of the quicker way to get to that website immediately, since fibromyalgiaflotationproject.com is a little bit of a mouthful. So what we did here is just set up basically so people who run float tank centers, I don't know if you guys know any of them, can sign up. And I'm like pointing at my screen. As you can see on my computer, can sign up. And we require a little bit of information. We're going to require you to fill up a little bit of a form before you're actually allowed to take on clients. I'm basically just saying that you agree to go by the procedures that we've set out for the study that Dr. Borrie has set out. And a couple things that I wanted to say on this. First of all, thank you so much to Ian for taking the time to design this and actually get it programmed as well, the float-on programmer. And also, I wanted to say for the extension of this out to other people, like Dr. Borrie said, the main goal right now is really to have a condensed body of studies. And that'll also work just in the tech of this to make sure that we have a test case and that all of this runs smoothly and that we can run a study from start to finish. So until that happens, we won't be extending this out. But the software is designed such that even this entire project is its own study, and it's set up to contain multiple studies, and eventually to add on researchers as well. So my goal with it eventually down the road, which might not happen for a little while as we concentrate on fibromyalgia, is to open this up so that people can propose studies they'd like to see, and researchers can sign up to sponsor them, and then centers can sign up to host participants, and participants can sign up with the centers. So kind of an ecosystem, global ecosystem of actually promoting and sharing research with float tanks for anything is the goal, in answer to your question back there. So just to give you a little preview of what will happen once you sign up. So once someone with fibromyalgia signs up, they end up with a screen that just brings them to, here, let's see. I don't think we have validation on here, but let's make sure. Bring them to a screen where basically they have some, oh boy, some options. Let's see. Let's see if that works, if I actually do it properly. Great. So from here, as you can see, what your customers will see is this. So they need to fill out this intake form, get it all done, which is all done online, and that's the first data that we collect. Then ask the doctor to fill out the medical awareness form. And for that, what we actually have is this medical awareness form, appropriately enough. And doctors can enter in their number, their email, and they also enter in the patient ID number, which is how we associate the medical form with the actual person with fibromyalgia. And then find a float center, which right now just links over to Float Finder to locate a float center. So right now the burden is on, if people with fibromyalgia just find the site, the burden is on them to locate a center near them and see if it's participating, which will probably switch eventually to a list of overall centers who have signed up once it's big enough. Right now we figured that's actually good for getting other centers who aren't here, who aren't listening, to know about the project and get them to sign up. The waiting list control group, which might be edited, as Dr. Borrie said, and that's it. Then once you sign up for that, then you're presented with a list of intake and outtake forms, essentially pre and post float forms, every time that you float that you can fill out, and it'll store all the data online, like Dr. Borrie was saying before. And so I wanted to show you what it looks like from your perspective as well. What was the last part of it? I got the first two words. That's right. Okay, so here's what it'll look like from your perspective. So you can actually just add in a participant ID number once they get their ID number registered with you. And this is where you'll actually tie them into the system. I'm not sure if it will allow you to do it if the participant doesn't exist. Yeah, so not found. So when a new one signs up, this is how you add them on. And then once you add them on, you get a really quick view of exactly what's going on here. So as you can see up here, client number 773547, which is to protect medical data. Anything that actually traces back to a person's name will be in a locked box at the float centers that are hosting it. And that's one of the main responsibilities of the float centers, is to hang on to that data. It can be a filing cabinet, just somewhere that's locked. And that's because the ability to put medical forms online and have it link back to someone is the biggest burden about trying to do this kind of software. And that's why you'll never see a person's name. Their email isn't even saved or tied to the account. All they have is this number, and everything else goes through the center. So 773547 has finished his intake medical, float 1 pre and post, float 2 pre and post, and then terminated. and that gives you a little scan of what's going on there. The next one has done intake medical, float 1, float 2, float 3, has not terminated, which means you can expect them to be coming in for their 4th, 5th, 6th, etc. floats. And so that just gives you a really quick scan of what's going on with the participants. And that's pretty much it. It's that simple. After that, all the data just goes straight into our database, and from there, we're able to pull it up and analyze it and throw it into the software that we use. So pretty much dead simple analytics and dead simple trans-geographical large sample sizes is really what we were going for this. And hopefully we succeeded, and that's really all I have to say on the project there. That, and of course, go sign up for it. Go sign up. Go sign up. It'll be good. Yeah, quick question, yeah.
With people's ID numbers, do you see any conflict in centers that require people to fill a waiver and actually divulge their personal information? Is there a separation between those?
Sure. So I mean, the thing is, you
Repeat the
won't be
question real fast.
Oh yeah, repeat it, please.
So the problem is anyone filling out a waiver when they divulge their information into the software here?
So the waiver won't be ever fed into the software, which is the important part. Because the only thing that we're worried about is making sure that if someone downloads all of the data from this or somehow has access to it, they can't find the individuals. So since these numbers aren't linked to anything personal about a person, in order to link the numbers, you have to go into the locked filing box, track down that number, and then you can find their personal information. So because of that distance, anything else that involves any of your clients pre-existing shouldn't affect it at all. Any other questions? And Rod Borrie also said that he can come back up and answer a couple more questions on this. How are we doing on time, Ashkan? Do we have a little bit, or is it? Are we running low?
We'll probably answer like 1 or 2 questions.
Okay, so we have a couple questions, and feel free to direct them to Dr. Borrie too, if that's better for you. Yeah.
Question on logistics. So at the center, you know the person because you're giving them the free floats, right? So they're not just a number at the center.
Sure.
Right.
Right. But the important thing, so the question with that was, what if you know the person, you know that they're coming in, they're part of the project, what's the deal with that, and how do you deal with that? So that's fine. I mean, ideally, we'd have totally blind, a double-blind study, I guess, and have a control group and also have it. But of course, like a double-blind with a float tank is like, you're not going to let people know that they're in a float tank or out of a float tank. You know, it's not going to be mysterious to them. So one-way blind would eventually be great in order to have the people at the centers not know who is coming in for it, but that's very difficult to arrange as well. And my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Rod, is that a lot of the data seems to be robust enough that I think the effect size from having the center owners know about it won't affect it. Plus, it's an informal study to begin with, and we're going with the basis of collecting so much data and across so much geography that the little details like that and the imperfections in the study hopefully won't matter as much in the end for the analysis. Is that a good answer to that? Thanks, Rod. Great. Any other short questions? Over there, yeah, Katrine.
What if participants wants to go more than 10 weeks? They love it and they want to go more than 10 weeks.
Absolutely, yeah. So 10 weeks we said is the default because that was sort of a meaningful amount of data that we could collect and make sure to trace. If they want to continue on, we actually encourage centers as well to continue offering free or discounted floats to the participants, and that's totally up to them, to the centers. And it looks like Rod's coming up here to deal with that one as well.
One change in what you just saw was I'd like to change the control group, and after 4, we're thinking about, we're asking a lot from you and giving away floats and taking discounts, and we're asking a lot from the participants when we ask them that, okay, at this point you have to pay. So some people in the scientific community are going to say, well, having them pay for the treatment, of course, it's not valid. But you can only ask people so much. So for the control, we want to change it so that each person is their own control. They'll fill out the form once a week before they start for 4 weeks. And that's be the time that they get their medical form filled out and all that, and get ready. And then the first 4 floats are in 4 weeks. After that, you can't tell someone you have to keep floating every week because they're paying for it at that point. So you float whenever you want. But if we keep them in the study, in order to keep that discount, you have to fill out this form every week that you don't float. So that's a different type of control that we're going to have. So we're going to get a tremendous amount of data, so to look at, okay, every time they have a float, they maybe go for 2 months where they don't float. What happens to them in that time? So we'll be keeping that data. So just want to, and after 10 weeks, that's up to the center and the participant. They probably will want, but maybe they can keep filling out the forms. If they don't want to, if they want to keep participating in that. But as far as asking for you to keep discounting them, that's up, I'm not going to ask, but you can do it if you want.
Yeah, back there.
Differing conditions from one tank to the next. Are we going to track like alkalinity and pH on that particular day that subject floated? Like, does that, kind of influence the control aspect of the experiment?
Gotcha. So the question there was, what about the conditions of the individual tank, and are we going to be tracking that and trying to control for it and making sure that everything's taken care of? Did you want to tackle that, or I can too?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. So with that, once again, we're trying to make this as easy to use and really get as much robust data as possible. So for right now, I think putting the burden of that on the float tank centers or of anything that makes it more complex is something we're trying to avoid. And depending on the research data that we get back, we may, my guess is, expand the software to be able to do something like that. And theoretically in the future, if it's running through the Helm too, you can just have that auto track straight to here from the center that's registered with the Helm software. Did that answer your question? Also, I just think that the slight differences, as long as float tank centers are actually maintaining a certain level of quality, and there are certain standards, like we only want hour-long floats for this one for the participants. So we're going to ask even for centers like Float On that do hour-and-a-half-long floats, they run them just for an hour. They're going to need internet access so they can fill out the forms immediately afterwards, as well as a place they can sit and access the internet. There are a few requirements for centers, but we've tried to keep that to the bare minimum to make sure that the data is, at the very least, not too polluted from the things we think matter in a big scale. Floating affects so many different things, down to your exercise habits, your smoking habits, your eating habits, your sugar habits. Are we going to try to ask participants to keep as much of their other life consistent other than the floats as possible so that that doesn't pollute the data?
Not for this study. I mean, we're not going to ask them to change their lives. These people are taking quite a few medications. We will want to know about any changes in their medications, as that's much more important for this, if they are taking less medication. I think it's a good idea to include those things, though, if we were to do a more general study of floating and, just get everybody to participate and, just if you want to be part of this study, we'll give you 10% off, and you fill out this form every time you float, and then we gather that. But would be a different project.
Also, I wanted to add on that one that the data, because it's collected pre-float, and then immediately after they get out of the float tank, they'll be sitting down in the center to fill out their post-float form. Hopefully that also restricts some of the in-between. We're kind of not doing this general monitoring as much between floats as we are the pre-float and then immediately post-float, which should give us more accurate data just for that controlled time. Since
Can you show the post-float after the first?
I can't remember the login for that. I couldn't. My computer was up here when I was trying to access all the data. So,
What was that?
Oh, Graham, I have another question on control as well. Are you requesting that the flotation be the only form of treatment, i.e. they're not supposed to do massage, acupuncture, counseling, whatever? Are you controlling for that, or?
So the question there was another control question. Are we prohibiting participants from taking any other form of care, such as acupuncture or other medicine, for the duration of their time with the project?
We're not. I mean, we don't. If they're having other treatments, that's fine. But we're just hoping that would be picked up in any of the control aspects when they're filling out forms when they're not floating. But we're not controlling for that. We can't ask them to restrict their other treatments.
Just as a suggestion, you could have a question on the questionnaire, just asking them if they've made significant changes or done medical treatment, any kind of alternative medical treatment.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, she was saying that we should add to one of the forms, asking if they have made any changes, any particular changes in their treatments that they're having, or perhaps in their behavior patterns.
Okay, I think that might be all the time we have for questions. Okay, we'll sneak one more in.
Fibromyalgia patients are being sent to mental health counselors because they have no alternative. They're told over and over again, it's all in your head. They're pissed off, they're not happy. They are going to be difficult maybe to deal with, but they're real desperate. And any progress any of us do with this is going to be really good PR for patients.
Yeah, and the participants are going to be your best word of mouth. They're going to spread it around that, you know, that this is something that works.
Absolutely, yeah. And definitely go onto the site and get registered. I mean, if the more centers we have on this place, the more that this is going to be a bigger project and all those things, and we'll be able to help these people, which is really fantastic.
All right, and I'm going to turn it back to Ashkan to dismiss us for lunch. But really quick, just a big round of applause for Rod Borrie again for setting this up and pursuing it. And to Ian as well for designing the actual software that'll make this all possible. Just realized I forgot one of the more important parts of the end of that presentation, which was what the heck we're doing with the Helm software now that we've started designing it. Which is we're going to start licensing it out. So doing kind of a software as a service, payment per month for it. And that's looking like we're hoping to get the current version that we have going ready for release to other centers by January. And in the meantime, we'll be working a lot on actually getting the scheduling side of that and the customer management side and the payment processing side working so that it actually provides a nice mind-body replacement. And no real time estimate on that. We have to kind of dig in and see how crazy it gets. But send me an email, graham@floathq, or Ashkan. You can look us up if you're interested in learning more about the Helm software. And we'll be sending out an email about it and signing up some people for beta, and then also just letting people know as we get it ready to fully release to the public. So thank you very much. Just wanted to let you guys know how to access it.
And along that same line, I'll probably make a page of the Float conference site that is just a page of resources for the things that have come up in this conference. And that'll include where we put out all the videos. We're hoping to just release edited footage of this conference for free over the internet for everyone. And so it's obviously going to take some time to edit, and I mean, there's like 45 hours of footage or something. But once we get that going, that's where that'll be, and all the other resources and stuff will be on there.